Some people measure intelligence by quick answers and sharper words. They notice who dominates conversations with polished certainty. They admire the ones who recall facts without hesitation. But something quieter always escapes their attention, and that silence hides a deeper pattern. The belief that intelligence equals high IQ feels stable, measurable, comforting. It promises a clear hierarchy in a chaotic social world. Numbers appear objective, clean, immune to emotion, offering reassurance that human complexity can be ranked without ambiguity or discomfort. Yet intelligence tests capture narrow abilities under controlled pressure, not the layered improvisation required by unpredictable real life. What is labeled as brilliance often reflects speed, memory, and pattern detection, not necessarily adaptability, emotional navigation, or long-term survival. Evolutionary psychologists suggest cognition evolved for survival coordination, not academic performance, which reframes the meaning of intellectual strength. In group settings, the fastest thinker often receives admiration, while the most perceptive observer remains unnoticed in the background. During a meeting, one person responds instantly to every challenge, citing data with precision. Voices nod in approval. Tension briefly dissolves. Across the table, another listens silently, tracking emotional shifts, noticing hesitation in the manager's tone, sensing alliances forming beneath words. The room praises confidence, yet the silent observer anticipates the coming restructuring weeks before it is announced. High IQ can signal strong analytical machinery, but machinery alone does not determine direction or timing in social ecosystems. Psychologist Carl Jung observed that intelligence divorced from self-awareness can inflate ego defenses rather than deepen understanding. What appears as superiority sometimes masks a dependency on being right, because certainty provides psychological safety. The need to demonstrate intellectual dominance often operates beneath awareness, serving belonging and status preservation rather than truth-seeking. In classrooms, the student who answers every question earns validation, applause, reinforcement, shaping identity around visible cognitive performance. Another student, slower to speak, reads the teacher's frustration, senses peer resentment, adjusts behavior to maintain equilibrium. The system rewards measurable output, rarely acknowledging relational calibration as a form of intelligence. Behavioral scientist B.F. Skinner noted that reinforced behaviors strengthen, meaning environments sculpt what kind of intelligence surfaces publicly. When societies reward quick wit and verbal dexterity, individuals adapt, amplifying those traits even if other capacities remain underdeveloped. Intelligence then becomes performance, not integration, a display calibrated for approval. At a family dinner, one sibling corrects minor factual errors repeatedly, earning a reputation as the smart one. Another diffuses rising conflict between parents with subtle humor, preventing escalation without claiming recognition. Years later, the first is still praised for brilliance. The second quietly maintains fragile relationships others depend upon. Which pattern better ensures group stability rarely enters discussion, because stability lacks spectacle. IQ scores predict certain academic outcomes, yet they cannot fully measure resilience under uncertainty, moral courage, or emotional containment. Real intelligence often involves tolerating ambiguity without rushing toward premature conclusions. It includes reading invisible social currents and regulating internal impulses before they fracture trust. The overvaluation of IQ simplifies identity, compressing a multidimensional organism into a single metric. Labels such as gifted or average describe statistical positioning, not the total architecture of a human nervous system. When identity fuses with cognitive ranking, fragility increases because any mistake threatens perceived worth. The smartest person in the room sometimes feels the most anxious about being exposed. Underneath polished reasoning may lie a vigilant survival instinct, scanning constantly for status threats. This vigilance can sharpen performance, yet it narrows perception toward competition rather than cooperation. True adaptability requires shifting strategies fluidly, not defending one cognitive strength at all costs. In a crowded office, the analytical expert resists delegating, fearing incompetence might surface through others' interpretations. Meanwhile, a colleague with moderate test scores orchestrates collaboration seamlessly, leveraging diverse strengths without attachment to personal credit. One clings to precision, the other to cohesion, and organizations quietly depend on the latter during crises. Intelligence that preserves ego differs from intelligence that preserves systems. The distinction remains subtle, often invisible until stress exposes structural weaknesses. When uncertainty rises, raw calculation may freeze, while relational awareness improvises pathways through tension. This divergence suggests IQ reflects capacity, not necessarily wisdom in motion. Beneath society's admiration for high scores lies an unexamined assumption that intellect alone guarantees effectiveness. Yet survival historically depended on cooperation, emotional signaling, and contextual sensitivity alongside reasoning. The brain did not evolve merely to solve abstract puzzles, but to navigate complex social landscapes. What we call intelligence may therefore be a fragment of a larger adaptive design, and its deeper origins trace back further than modern testing ever reveals. If you're still watching, you probably notice things most people miss. You question behavior. You look beneath the surface. If that sounds like you, subscribe. This channel was made for minds like yours. Long before intelligence was measured, it was felt through survival outcomes, through who endured winters, conflicts, and shifting alliances. Evolutionary pressures shaped cognition toward adaptation, not abstract scoring, embedding intelligence within the nervous system's threat detection circuits. A child learns quickly which behaviors bring approval, which invite withdrawal, calibrating expression to maintain connection. In early classrooms, praise often follows quick answers, reinforcing speed as valuable and hesitation as weakness. The brain associates recognition with safety, weaving cognitive performance into belonging. At home, a parent beams when homework scores are high, conversation warms, affection becomes more accessible. On evenings when grades slip, silence lingers longer at the table, subtle disappointment thickening the air. The child's nervous system records the pattern, linking intellectual display with emotional security. Over time, performance becomes armor, shielding against rejection or invisibility. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl described meaning as essential for endurance, and children often derive meaning from being seen as capable. When capability narrows to measurable intellect, identity compresses accordingly. Some children adapt differently, learning that emotional attunement stabilizes unpredictable caregivers. A quiet child studies facial expressions carefully, adjusting tone and posture to prevent conflict. This sensitivity grows sharp, though rarely labeled as intelligence. In unpredictable households, rapid analysis of mood shifts can determine safety more reliably than solving equations. The brain encodes these adaptations deeply, sculpting neural pathways around whichever strategy preserved connection. High IQ may emerge partly from genetic predisposition, yet its social meaning is constructed through reinforcement. Communities often elevate analytical dominance, associating it with competence and authority. Children absorb this hierarchy early, sensing where admiration flows. On playgrounds, the one who wins arguments with clever logic gathers attention. Another who diffuses tension through humor prevents exclusion, though applause remains softer. Both are intelligent in different currencies, but only one currency becomes standardized. Standardization simplifies evaluation, yet complexity resists containment. Behavioral conditioning strengthens visible cognitive strengths, while quieter forms remain underdeveloped or unrecognized. In adolescence, identity consolidates around rewarded traits, creating narratives of being the smart one or the average one. Such narratives solidify neural expectations, guiding future choices and risks. The labeled gifted student may avoid challenges that threaten reputation, preferring arenas guaranteeing superiority. Meanwhile, the overlooked peer experiments socially, learning negotiation and resilience through trial. Over years, divergent competencies emerge, each rooted in early adaptive learning. Evolutionary psychologists suggest human survival depended heavily on reading group dynamics accurately. Those who misjudged alliances or emotional signals risked exclusion, which historically meant danger. Therefore, social intelligence developed alongside analytical reasoning, though modern metrics seldom reflect this parity. Fear plays a quiet role in shaping which intelligence surfaces most strongly. If rejection felt catastrophic in childhood, intellectual excellence might function as insurance. If chaos dominated early environments, emotional scanning becomes primary strategy. Neither adaptation indicates superiority or deficiency, only calibration to context. Labels like high IQ describe measurable cognitive processing, not total adaptive repertoire. When society equates high scores with overall worth, individuals internalize narrow definitions of value. A university lecture hall offers another scene. A student confidently dismantles complex theories during discussion, earning admiration from professors. After class, the same student misreads a peer's sarcasm, leaving conversations strained and awkward. Elsewhere, a classmate struggles with timed exams, yet mediates conflicts within study groups effortlessly. The system records only grades, overlooking stabilizing influence. Over time, these reinforcements shape career trajectories and self-perception. Intelligence becomes associated with abstraction, detached from relational consequences. Yet the brain's architecture evolved to integrate emotion and cognition seamlessly. Separating them artificially creates distortions in how intelligence is valued. High IQ may amplify analytical speed, but integration determines functional wisdom. When integration fails, brilliance can coexist with fragility. Underneath the admiration for mental quickness lies a deeper survival script, written long before testing rooms existed. That script continues unfolding socially, revealing itself in subtle interpersonal patterns. The overvaluation of IQ rarely announces itself directly. It surfaces in subtle hierarchies shaping daily interactions. People often notice it first in others, in the colleague who corrects small errors to maintain intellectual positioning. At social gatherings, one voice dominates with obscure references and complex explanations. Laughter follows politely, yet distance grows quietly. Across the room, another person listens more than speaks, tracking conversational rhythm, intervening only to redirect tension. Observers label the first impressive, the second agreeable, not recognizing different intelligences at work. In friendships, analytical sharpness can morph into quiet competition, where debates replace intimacy. Two friends discuss politics. One dismantles every argument effortlessly, precision slicing through nuance. The other begins withholding opinions, sensing conversation has become performance rather than exchange. Brilliance wins the debate, yet connection thins invisibly. In romantic relationships, cognitive dominance sometimes substitutes for vulnerability. During conflict, one partner cites psychological research flawlessly, reframing emotions into structured analysis. The other feels unseen, as lived experience becomes material for intellectual correction. The argument appears resolved logically, though emotional residue lingers unresolved beneath structured reasoning. Psychologist Carl Jung observed that intellect can function as a defense against confronting inner complexity. When analysis overrides empathy, intelligence protects identity rather than deepening mutual understanding. Work environments amplify these dynamics subtly. In strategy meetings, a high-scoring analyst anticipates market shifts accurately, earning authority quickly. Yet team morale declines as subtle dismissiveness communicates superiority. Another employee, less verbally dominant, senses burnout early and adjusts workflow to preserve stability. Leadership often gravitates toward visible cognitive certainty, not toward relational calibration. Over time, organizations may suffer fragmentation despite strategic precision. In families, intellectual hierarchy can crystallize early and persist for decades. One sibling becomes the designated genius, consulted on financial or academic decisions. Another becomes emotional anchor, absorbing tensions during holidays without acknowledgement. When crises strike, the emotionally attuned sibling often sustains cohesion while the intellectual sibling calculates options. Society praises the calculation, overlooking the containment. Power dynamics frequently intertwine with perceived intelligence. Those who articulate complex ideas fluently gain influence in conversations and institutions. Fluency creates the illusion of comprehensive understanding. Meanwhile, individuals who process internally may be underestimated, their insight delayed but often integrative. This asymmetry shapes promotions, partnerships, and social respect. Behavioral scientist B.F. Skinner noted that environments reinforce what they visibly reward, and social systems reward display. Displayable intelligence becomes currency, traded for status and security. A networking event offers another snapshot. One participant lists achievements rapidly, citing metrics and credentials with polished confidence. Another asks careful questions, absorbing subtle cues about alliances and unspoken tensions. Weeks later, the second navigates partnerships more effectively, having mapped the relational terrain quietly. The first leaves impressions, the second builds infrastructure. In public discourse, rapid rebuttal culture celebrates intellectual combat. Televised debates reward speed and rhetorical agility over reflective integration. Viewers equate quick response with depth, rarely examining long-term consequences of oversimplified certainty. This pattern extends into digital spaces, where sharp commentary travels faster than nuanced reflection. High IQ may enhance argumentation, yet social ecosystems require modulation and timing. Without modulation, intelligence can unintentionally isolate its holder. The person admired for brilliance may privately feel misunderstood or disconnected. Underneath visible competence, social friction accumulates subtly. Intelligence expressed without relational awareness risks becoming brittle under pressure. In contrast, individuals integrating cognition with emotional attunement often move through conflicts with less visible force. Their intelligence appears quieter, yet its effects ripple more sustainably. Midway through observing these dynamics, a quiet recognition emerges. Admiration and discomfort often coexist around visible brilliance. The social world reflects back not only capability, but also the cost of how it is expressed. As modern structures intensify competition and visibility, these patterns grow more pronounced, shaping identity and reward in unprecedented ways. Modern culture magnifies visible intellect through metrics, followers, credentials, and algorithmic reward systems that privilege speed over depth. Digital platforms favor concise certainty, compressing complexity into shareable fragments that reward immediate cognitive dominance. Posts framed with absolute confidence circulate widely, while nuanced reflections disappear into quieter corners of attention. Technology accelerates comparison, turning intelligence into public spectacle measured through engagement statistics. A professional shares a sharply argued thread dissecting economic trends. Reactions multiply rapidly. Authority solidifies overnight. Another spends hours mediating team misunderstandings offline, unseen by metrics, though organizational stability quietly depends on that labor. The algorithm registers applause, not cohesion. Cultural narratives equate intelligence with productivity, output, and optimization. Efficiency becomes moralized subtly, implying faster thinkers contribute more value. This framing narrows perception of intelligence into quantifiable deliverables. In corporate environments, rapid problem-solving receives bonuses and promotions. Employees who detect burnout early and adjust interpersonal strain receive little formal recognition. Yet long-term sustainability hinges on such adjustments. Modern education intensifies standardized evaluation, embedding early competition into identity formation. Students compare percentile rankings publicly, internalizing hierarchies long before adulthood. A teenager refreshes a portal repeatedly after exam results post, heart racing as numbers define self-perception. Another student comforts a friend devastated by low scores, providing stability that no transcript reflects. The transcript endures. The emotional scaffolding remains undocumented. Neuroscience suggests chronic comparison activates threat circuits, increasing cortisol and narrowing attention. Under constant evaluation, intellectual display becomes protective armor. Armor can sharpen edges, yet it reduces flexibility. On professional networking platforms, achievements are curated meticulously, reinforcing identity around measurable competence. Vulnerability feels risky in spaces optimized for prestige signaling. As a result, intellectual branding intensifies, while relational depth recedes. Cultural incentives subtly reward those who articulate complexity confidently, even when certainty exceeds evidence. Public intellectual posturing becomes adaptive within competitive economies. However, over time, This posture can detach individuals from internal uncertainty necessary for growth. Psychologist Carl Jung warned that over-identification with persona can eclipse authentic integration. When intelligence becomes persona, fragility hides beneath polished articulation. A consultant delivers compelling presentations flawlessly, praised for strategic brilliance. Privately, exhaustion accumulates from maintaining cognitive superiority in every interaction. There is little room for confusion or exploration without risking status erosion. Modern media also compresses attention spans, privileging rapid synthesis over contemplative depth. Long-form reflection competes poorly against punchy commentary. This environment amplifies certain cognitive traits disproportionately. High verbal agility thrives, while slow integrative thinking struggles for visibility. Economic structures reinforce this imbalance. Consulting, finance, and technology sectors reward analytical speed financially. Fields centered on relational maintenance, such as caregiving or mediation, often receive lower compensation. Value signals align accordingly, shaping aspirations and identity. In romantic markets, intelligence becomes branding as well. Dating profiles highlight degrees and intellectual hobbies prominently. Emotional steadiness or conflict navigation rarely occupies headline space. Thus, visible intellect accrues desirability capital, reinforcing its dominance. Over time, societies begin conflating intellectual sharpness with overall competence automatically. This conflation narrows collective understanding of adaptive capacity. Hidden psychological costs accumulate quietly. Individuals anchored to cognitive superiority may struggle when faced with ambiguity resistant to analysis. Crises such as grief or betrayal cannot be solved through logic alone. When analytical tools fail, identity destabilizes. Meanwhile, those who cultivated emotional tolerance navigate uncertainty with less visible strain. The amplification of IQ as ultimate metric thus reshapes not only institutions but internal landscapes. Performance pressure increases vigilance, reducing space for reflective integration. What appears as progress in cognitive refinement may conceal fragmentation beneath surface mastery. As awareness of these distortions grows subtly, another layer emerges beneath performance and reward. That layer concerns perception itself and how individuals interpret their own intelligence in silence. Deeper awareness does not resolve tension, it simply illuminates it more clearly. When IQ is treated as ultimate intelligence, perception narrows quietly around measurable traits, leaving other capacities unnamed and therefore psychologically discounted. Awareness begins with noticing this narrowing, not condemning it, but observing how deeply it shapes identity and expectation. A professional praised for analytical brilliance sits alone after a presentation, replaying minor imperfections repeatedly despite public admiration. Achievement does not silence internal vigilance, it often intensifies it. The mind accustomed to ranking itself rarely rests outside comparison. Another individual, never labeled exceptional, navigates daily unpredictability with emotional steadiness, rarely celebrated, yet rarely destabilized. There is competence without spectacle in that steadiness. High IQ can expand problem-solving range, yet when fused with identity, it creates constant exposure to evaluation. Every mistake threatens coherence of self-concept. This threat does not announce itself dramatically. It appears as subtle irritability, defensiveness, or withdrawal when certainty fractures. Psychologist Carl Jung observed that what remains unconscious directs behavior with quiet authority. If intelligence becomes the primary self-definition, unconscious fear of inadequacy may govern reactions. In conversations, correction may arise automatically, not from cruelty, but from reflexive preservation of status. At a dinner table, someone interrupts to refine a trivial detail. Conversation pauses slightly. Atmosphere cools imperceptibly. The correction appears harmless, yet beneath it lies compulsion to maintain intellectual positioning. Awareness notices the compulsion without assigning moral judgment. Similarly, those who undervalue their own cognitive abilities may defer excessively, assuming insight belongs elsewhere. During meetings, a capable employee hesitates to share an idea, recalling years of being labeled average. Silence becomes habitual, not from lack of thought, but from internalized hierarchy. Both patterns originate from adaptation. Neither represents inherent limitation. Evolutionary psychologists suggest survival favored flexible strategy switching rather than rigid self-concepts. Rigid identification with being smart or not smart constrains that flexibility. Awareness exposes the constraint without offering immediate comfort. It reveals how admiration for IQ has shaped educational systems, workplaces, and intimate relationships subtly yet persistently. It also reveals the private anxiety attached to maintaining cognitive superiority continuously. Some individuals discover that beneath intellectual pride lies exhaustion. Others discover that beneath assumed ordinariness lies unrecognized strategic perception. These recognitions do not dissolve tension, they simply clarify structure. There is discomfort in acknowledging that intelligence operates multidimensionally while culture rewards selectively. That discomfort may feel destabilizing because it challenges familiar hierarchies. A leader long respected for analytical mastery notices difficulty navigating team emotions during crisis. The realization does not negate competence, it complicates it. Another leader known for empathy struggles with abstract forecasting, recognizing complementary limits. Awareness places both realities side by side without ranking them morally. Behavioral scientist B.F. Skinner noted that behavior persists where reinforced, meaning cultural reward will continue shaping expression of intelligence. Knowing this does not automatically alter participation in those systems. It only clarifies why certain traits feel urgent to display. Intelligence, in its broader sense, includes tolerance for this ambiguity. It involves perceiving internal drives without immediate justification or suppression. When IQ is no longer viewed as total measure, identity loosens slightly, though uncertainty increases. Uncertainty can feel threatening to minds trained to seek definitive ranking. Yet life rarely presents clear scoring systems outside controlled environments. Relationships fluctuate, markets shift, health changes, certainty erodes. In these spaces, adaptability often outweighs raw calculation. The recognition remains unfinished. There is no neat conclusion that dethrones IQ or glorifies alternative capacities. There is only a widening lens, revealing that what was once considered the summit may be a single ridge within a larger terrain. Sitting with that terrain without rushing toward new hierarchy may be the most demanding form of intelligence quietly available.